Sealed Pokemon products are increasingly difficult to find, yet singles are continuing to dip, so something has to give. Though before we get into this video, I'm actually gifting this Hisuian Growlithe to one subscriber. Now, if I reply to your comment and I add this shiny Sylveon emoji, then well done, this Growlithe is getting sent your way. And hey, if you are new to the channel, welcome aboard. My name's Phil and I cover topics relating to the Pokemon TCG. Feel free to subscribe to join the journey. Though the sealed market is in a very odd position, and it's something we need to discuss and look into, especially as singles are falling so heavily. So here I am on Surging Sparks booster boxes. Now here's the thing, I can see Surging Sparks is selling for $224 at the moment. And now that is a low price for what it was, a few months back for $260, or it's at least getting to a better price point. But the fact that I'm even looking at $220 US and saying, oh, that's a good price, that's a bit of a problem, because booster boxes shouldn't cost that much for a set that's not even a year old. So the fact that it's at that price point is a little bit concerning, okay? But here's the thing, I'm looking at that, okay, 224 US. Though, when I look at Surging Sparks, I know the chances to get a special illustration rare are very difficult. So what is more likely? Well, it's more likely I can pull an illustration rare. Though when I'm looking at some of the illustration rares within Surging Sparks, this is where it starts losing sense and where I think a crossroad is going to happen for a lot of collectors. Because you have sealed products which are super expensive and everyone knows the chase cards inside those are very difficult. What's more likely is you will pull an illustration rare. But when I'm looking at Surging Sparks, I'm looking at some awesome illustration rares within it. But check this out. The Mesprit illustration rare in the last 6 months, you can see this was selling for 17 US. In January, people thought this was going to go to a $30 or a $40 card. A lot of people were thinking this would climb up. You could see how it was climbing up really high in value with all that illustration rare boom that was happening. But you can see this Mesprit is currently selling for $8 USD. So okay, it's $8, but now I'm going to buy a sealed product for 220 US. I may pull one of these. I may pull 2 illustration rares, but really, I wouldn't even be getting close to making any money back. Now, I know that's not the best way to look at a hobby like when you want to open Pokemon products, but the thing is, I think most people would agree that you kind of want some of the cards in the set to be somewhat valuable, especially if you're going to be paying double the usual retail price. So here is where it's kind of not making sense, and I think it's going to become a problem. Sure, the Pikachu's like 290 US, right? Sure, the Milotic's expensive. Sure, the Latios EX is expensive, but everyone knows they are very rare. In fact, to pull one of those is 1 in 940 packs. So it is very challenging to pull the SIR. You're more likely to get an illustration rare, but even if you did pull the illustration rare, I mean, 8 USD, you're not really doing much with that as well. So I do think we are at this weird point where people haven't questioned enough. People haven't asked enough questions. They're loving to open their products and they love their sealed, but they're not really drilling in. If you don't pull a special illustration rare, well, what have you really pulled? Same thing when we look at the Feebas illustration rare. You can see selling for 15 US. Right now selling for $7, lost half of its price. Literally 50% off. Pretty crazy, right? I mean, it still is an illustration rare. Sure, it's not the most popular Pokemon. I mean, I like Feebas. Probably a lot of people don't like Feebas. But still, Feebas hasn't got much representation in the TCG. It is awesome to see it as an illustration rare, though you can see the market hasn't responded that well to it. Now, also for some awesome news, I've actually teamed up with Collector and we are giving away this PSA 10 Gardevoir Special Illustration Rare. You can enter now on my channel's Discord, which is in the video's description. Now, today's video is sponsored by the Collector app. Now, what's awesome, if you have the latest version of Collector, there's actually a new set analytics tab, and you can see this when you're looking at a particular set. This offers insights into the current and historical performances of any particular set. So as you can see here, I'm on Pokemon 151. Now, this new feature presents a volatility score based on recent price fluctuations. It also shows you the market movers inside the set. So this lets you drill deep into the analytics of a set. You can also see the card breakdowns to see how many SIRs or illustration rares are within the set. The set analytics is an awesome new addition. You can find more details of Collector within the video's description. A huge thank you to Collector for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back into it. Even when we're looking at the Latios illustration rare, I thought when Surging Sparks released, this card would be on par with Groudon from Paradox Rift. I thought, why wouldn't it be? Groudon, the artwork is awesome. This Latios, to me, the artwork is sensational. It is really, really cool. You can see this card found a high point in the market for 45 US, but look what's happened now. This card is selling for 29 US, lost $15 off its high point. That's a very big percentage decrease. There you go, man. You can see the chance to pull this Latios is very, very challenging. But even if you did, you're still paying $220 for a booster box. So I think a lot of people are now asking questions about these sealed products because I think they're trying to make sense of it, but not much is making sense. In fact, I think people just want sealed to keep it sealed. And we're going through that period at the moment. It seems the whole point of sealed product is just to leave it sealed. Opening them becomes a silly decision. Rebel Clash was always a silly decision. The ETBs were so much, but that's because the ETB was so rare. If you open Rebel Clash, you would get absolutely nothing from the set. But almost when you take that gamble, it is a massive kind of risk to open those booster boxes. I've opened a Surging Sparks booster box. I did pull this Latios, but otherwise I know if you've opened Surging Sparks, you would know it is a very challenging set. Same thing when we're looking at Twilight Masquerade booster boxes. You can see, check this out, selling for 207 US. Look at that, $241 for Twilight Masquerade. That to me is super, super expensive. Now here's the thing. What does Twilight Masquerade have? It's got Greninja Special Illustration Rare. But after the Greninja SIR, what are you really chasing from the set? Not many people have asked this question. It's kind of almost similar to Silver Tempest in that way. You've got Lugia V, and then you don't have much after that. Now, Twilight Masquerade does have more interesting cards than Silver Tempest. You do have Infernape, you do have Eevee, but when you look at the prices of those, check these out. Eevee Illustration Rare, right? Selling for 104 in January. Right now selling for 60 US. That is a wild price decrease, man. And when you think about it, that is making you kind of feel like, hey, is Twilight Masquerade worth it? And that's why, man, now is the time to pace yourself. Now is the time to seriously ask questions if you're going to be buying a lot of sealed product. Maybe you want to keep a booster box. I get that, right? I'm like that too. I like keeping my booster boxes. To me, booster boxes are way better because, you know, they're just fun to display. They look great. You actually feel like you own a part of the expansion. It is great. They are hard to find though. They are very expensive. And for that reason, you can see some of the price of these cards are not making that much sense. Even when we look at the Infernape Illustration Rare, this card was selling for 18 US, right now selling for 11 bucks. Man, that's pretty low for a card of such a good quality artwork. I've always really rated this Illustration Rare. I'm actually surprised it's at $11. If you look before, this card was selling for $7, went all the way up to, 17, 18, right now sitting at 11 bucks. Can it go lower? Who knows? We do know more Twilight Masquerades coming on the market. And even when we look at the Chansey Illustration Rare, you can see this card was selling for 27 US, right now selling for 17. A lot of these Illustration Rares are really coming down in price, yet the sealed is going up. Now, of course, the reason for that is because the sealed has become the collectible. It's now not about the cards anymore. It's about having that product sealed. I get that, but at the same time, we're still not in that territory where the sealed product is so out of reach and it's such a rare thing and only a few people kept it sealed. It is still in territory where it's getting produced. So this is new territory for a lot of us. A lot of us haven't seen this yet. So we're kind of also adapting to this new market territory. A lot of people who are collecting and investing are kind of now adjusting to how Pokemon cards behave because this wasn't the case for a while and now it is. Now, even when you're looking at Paldea Evolved, you can see it's gone up in price. Was selling for around $216 in March. Right now selling for $293. That is a wild price point, man. Look, I do like Paldea Evolved. It's actually one of my favorite sets from the Scarlet and Violet era. But at the same time, you've got Magikarp Illustration Rare. After that, to pay that kind of price point, when you're looking at the other cards in the set, doesn't make much sense. When you're looking at the Raichu Illustration Rare, great card selling for 50 US. So you can see, sure, you might pull this card, you might not. I mean, I've opened a few Paldea Evolved booster boxes, have pulled the Magikarp, have pulled the Raichu, but I opened them on separate occasions. I never got them in the same booster box. The chance of you pulling two really good Illustration Rares from one booster box is very, very unlikely. Same thing when you're looking at the Tyranitar, you can see selling for 52 US, now selling for 43. Obviously what's happening as well is a lot of sealed is getting open, so a lot of these are coming on the market. But the thing is, I'm kind of feeling like, are singles even as desired right now as they used to be. I feel like people love sealed. I really feel that people just want to collect sealed. And I think it's hard, right? Because sealed goes against what you want to do. Sealed is kind of like if you have restraint and you have a good way to control yourself and you can leave sealed product, unopened, it's great. But a lot of people don't have that self-control. So that's where sealed favors the people who can hold onto it. A lot of people don't like holding onto sealed product because they think, oh, what if it's got a chase card? I mean, if you sold something on eBay and then, you sold your booster box and then someone messages you saying, hey dude, I just opened your Twilight Masquerade booster box you sold me. I pulled the Greninja Special Illustration Rare. You would burn, dude. If you now sold a Prismatic Evolutions ETB, you sold it on eBay, and then 3 days later someone goes, hey man, open the Prismatic ETB. I just pulled the Umbreon. You'd be like, no, what the hell, dude? You would be so disappointed, right? So I think that's why a lot of people also don't like to sell their sealed, because it's just like, you know what? Maybe one day I'll open it. And of course you can see the Chien-Pao Special Illustration Rare, 23 US down to 18 bucks for a special illustration rare. Really, really low price points for a lot of these cards in Paldea Evolved, but then again, the sealed has gone up. So like I said, this crossroad we're in right now, we're kind of living through this era of Pokemon cards. And I think it's getting harder and harder to kind of navigate the hobby because no one really knows what's coming next. Is it gonna be another boom after the summer period ends? Something may change. I think 2026 will be a very interesting time for the hobby. The reason why is when I look at Google Analytics and I look at Google Trends, I can see that Pokemon TCG Pocket made a huge spike in popularity for how many people joined the TCG. We can see that Pokemon printed less cards last year than they did in 2023, and now they need to print way more this year to match the new demand. But will this demand maintain? This is the thing, man. The demand has to maintain, and that's why I always speak about it. It's about the demand staying for a long period of time. Though at the same time, we did have a bit of a unique event, kind of the Pokemon Go of TCG released last year. That's a massive event for the Pokemon TCG. So we've had to adjust to a newfound audience. Though, one thing that doesn't make sense is how come Pokemon didn't anticipate how many people would enter the hobby from Pokemon TCG Pocket? I mean, to me, that's a very simple connection point. You've got a digital client where people are playing the Pokemon TCG and collecting online. Wouldn't they get interest for the physical TCG? We know with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, when they released Master Duel, a lot of people went to the TCG as well to check it out. So to me, that was a very logical connection point to make why they didn't anticipate, hey, maybe we should prepare more product because we're releasing a huge mobile app that's going to be very popular because we're Pokemon. So that's kind of a bit of an oversight, I feel, that they didn't make the connection that Pokemon TCG Pocket would bring in so many people. But of course, we're here now, and I think the hobby is going to be interesting, especially for next year. And I'm actually very excited to see where the hobby goes from here, especially because more and more products are coming. Mega Evolutions are coming back. So for that reason, I think it's an exciting time to be involved in the hobby at this point. Though while the sealed market is going one way and singles are heading the other, it does make you wonder what's making Pokemon change so much. Like even now with the new Mega Evolution set, we can see the nostalgia is growing heavily. And with the new Legends ZA game releasing, hype for Mega Evolutions is off the charts. Though it makes you wonder if people will also one day look at Dynamax and Gigantamax with the same love in their eyes like they look at Mega Evolutions. Because I suppose Mega Evolutions were always loved from the get-go, but Gigantamax had a real rough journey and people disliked it from the get-go. Though I actually have a bit of a hot take, and I feel Gigantamax is actually Pokemon's greatest gimmick and it's its greatest success story. And I reveal what I mean by that in this video here. Within this video on screen, I reveal in detail why Pokemon got it so right with Dynamax and Gigantamax. I personally think it was a genius addition to the franchise. Click the video that's appearing on screen to learn more about it there, and I'll see you on that video.